The ISPR visits the UK.
Early in 1999, I had also taken part in team investigations of various sites in Hollywood with the International Society for Paranormal Research, headed by Dr. Laurie Mons. The ISPR is based in Los Angeles, California. Dr. Mons has been a paranormal investigator for over 27 years. His speciality is field parapsychology. After my return, Dr. Mons kept in constant contact with me, and one day in March he phoned to tell me that the ISPR team would be travelling to the UK to conduct several investigations and make 2 videos. On a breezy day in April, the team arrived at Heathrow Airport. It was wonderful to meet up with them all again. Dr. Mons, Dana Smoller, Linda Mackenzie, Sean Roop, and my good friend Peter James warily walked into the arrivals hall, and we were soon excitedly discussing the first of the locations they intended investigating the following day: the Jack the Ripper murder sites. The East End of London in the late 19th century was one of the worst areas of the city, and the Whitechapel district was witness to a series of horrible murders. It was to be the job of the team to uncover the identity of the murderer, who was known only as Jack the Ripper. Donald Rummelow, historian and Ripper expert, was invited to join the team on their investigation. Although Jack the Ripper has been credited with the murder of 6 women at different locations, we would be visiting just 2 of those murder sites. It would be Donald's job to authenticate any information the team members might produce. The first place the team was taken to was Mitre Square. Today, this is a pleasant flagged area where people may sit and enjoy a sandwich during a summer lunch break. Along one side of the square runs a schoolyard in which children play. However, the cheery sounds of a lunchtime game of football faded as I concentrated on opening myself up to the energies of the infamous events which had taken place over a century earlier. I allowed myself to drift back in time. The April sunshine disappeared as the square darkened and it became night-time. It was quiet, though I could hear shouting and merriment coming from a nearby hostelry. A woman's raucous laughter echoed out of the darkness. The name Catherine came into my mind clairvoyantly. I could see a woman dressed in dark, shabby clothing. Wisps of greying hair could be seen straying from underneath a greasy bonnet. She had the rattled features of somebody who is no stranger to drink. I knew that she was a victim of the infamous Jack the Ripper, and that Catherine was her name. As I allowed myself to come forward to the present, I noticed a bench not 6 feet away. I walked over and touched it. "This is the spot," I shouted to Dr. Mons. "This is where Catherine's life was taken from her." Although the bench had been placed in the square at a much later date, I was able to use it to pick up on the residual energies of the woman's dying moments. I could feel the dread and the heart-stopping fear she had experienced. I was overcome by the stench of blood and something which I could not describe, which was horrible and offensive. I could also tell Dr. Mons that Catherine had not been the first of the vile creature's victims. By the time he met her, Jack the Ripper was a seasoned killer. As I stood contemplating the spot, I became aware of another name. "Lily, Elizabeth," I said. "She was a victim too. There were 2 killings and both on the same night. I could sense the slashing of the victims' bodies as they were disemboweled and butchered." Donald confirmed that on the night of the 30th of September, 1888, both Catherine Eddowes and Elizabeth Stride had fallen victim to London's most famous serial killer. He had viciously killed and brutalised their bodies. Then Donald guided us to another area. He stopped at a place called Durwood Street. This was Bucks Row, he told us, and stood back expectantly, waiting to hear what we had to say. I allowed myself to drift back in time once more. The small area of rough ground where I was standing bore no resemblance to the picture which unfolded before my eyes. Now it is a concrete jungle with high-rise flats and flagstones sprouting tufts of grass. There's a graffiti-scarred concrete garage next to a fence with a wooden gate hanging off its hinges. I was drawn to this break in the fence, and as I walked over to it, I could smell the same revolting odours which had assaulted my nostrils in Mitre Square. This time I could see the body of a rather stocky, dark-haired woman. Her clothes were obviously filthy, but appeared to be soaked in blood. Her face was slashed, and I could see that one of her ears was hanging off. In stark contrast, on the floor not far from her body lay what appeared to be a shining black straw hat. I was impressed to utter the name Nicholas. Could this be the name of the murderer? The name Polly was also strongly evident to me. As I allowed myself to drift back to the present day, I relayed the picture I'd seen to Dr. Mons and Mr. Rummelow. They confirmed that it was the area of the gateway that the body of a woman called Polly was found. "Can you describe the person responsible for the murders?" Dr. Mons asked me. I felt that there were two people responsible, I said. I believe that there was a copycat murder. The man responsible for most of the murders is tall and slim, not heavy-set at all, and in his 30s. He has strong crease marks down the side of his face with high cheekbones. He has dark hair with touches of grey to the sides, and he definitely has facial hair. He carries a pocket watch and seems to be constantly conscious of time. He certainly isn't a poor working man. The person I'm talking about is used to mixing with the aristocracy, and I feel he could have some connection with royalty. "And a name?" questioned Dr. Mons. "Sadly, no. On this occasion I was not being impressed by the name of the man who became infamous as Jack the Ripper. I'd like one day to revisit the site of the Whitechapel murders and see what else I can uncover. I still maintain that more than one person was behind what I would describe as ritualistic killings. I feel that 5 of the murders were carried out by the same man, but there was at least one murder for which another individual was responsible." The day which I had long awaited had finally arrived. Tonight I was appearing for the first time at the famous Liverpool Empire Theatre. As I would be conducting a demonstration of clairvoyance and mediumship for 2 hours, it was decided that the rest of the ISPR team would carry out an investigation at the theatre without me. I am happy to report that they were able to confirm the presence of a spirit girl, aged approximately 12, who had fallen from the front of the circle onto the seats of the stalls below. The spirit of this young girl is frequently seen in the corridors, front of house and stalls of the theatre. Meanwhile, I was honoured that Julie Goodyear had graciously agreed to introduce me to my audience at the beginning of the show. I had worked with Julie briefly while she had hosted the Granada Breeze programme Lifetime and was delighted to see her once again. I had a tremendous evening, and judging by the audience response, so did they. Many people think that a demonstration of mediumship is all doom and gloom, with an atmosphere of misery and sadness. This is not the case at all. If a person has a cheerful and outgoing personality whilst here on earth, they will carry that personality through to their life in the spirit world. I can recall one hilarious moment when a young man from the spirit world tapped me on the shoulder and told me he'd like to speak to his sister Karen and her friend. "Tell them Carl wants to speak to them," he announced in his cheeky Scouse accent. I duly did as requested, and a gasp went up from a young lady who was sitting half a dozen rows back in the stalls. "I'm all right now, our kid," shouted Carl. "Look," and he proceeded to skip across the stage. "I can't do that," I said to Carl. "Course you can, Degsy," came the cheeky reply. "Carl's telling me that he's fine now in the world of spirit," I told Karen, "and he's kicking up his heels just to prove it." Carl continued, "It wasn't any good, that stuff. I knew I shouldn't take it, but it got hold of me, and I just carried on. Didn't think it'd see the end of me, though. But guess what? I'm not skint over here. You don't need money." With that, he turned out his pockets, and I don't have to keep looking over my shoulder. He burst into peals of laughter and ran across the stage, warily looking over his shoulder. "I don't need to keep an eye out for the Rosses over here." I looked out to Karen in the audience and wondered how on earth I was going to pass that message over. Oh well, go for broke, I thought, and repeated exactly what Carl had told me, giving a demonstration of the turned-out pockets and the hasty scuttling across the stage whilst looking over my shoulder. Karen and her friend were beside themselves with laughter, together with the rest of the audience. "That's our Carl," Karen said. "He was always getting into trouble and had to keep on his toes." Carl's message continued. "Seriously though, kid, I'm okay over here. And guess what? I've met old Uncle Jimmy. He's shown me the ropes. Tell you one thing though, I'm not happy about our Dave nicking me bedroom." Karen laughed through her tears. "Dave's our brother, and when we lost Carl, Dave took over his bedroom. Their taste and decoration weren't quite the same," she added tellingly. Carl passed on messages of love to his mum and dad and the rest of the family. He finished up on a light note by telling his sister that the medium she'd been to see just after his passing had not been able to make contact with him. "Because she was no good, that's why," he scoffed. "Next time you want to speak to me, go to someone who can do the biz." The grand finale of the ISPR team's visit to the UK was a visit to Belgrave Hall in Leicestershire. Belgrave had recently been in the news around the world as the CCTV system had picked up some anomalous footage. Had a ghost been caught on camera? It was planned that the team would arrive at midnight. Dr. Mance asked each member of the team to enter the hall individually so that he could compare findings. As I entered the rear pantry and walked through the dimly lit kitchen, I was aware that there was indeed spirit activity within the hall. I continued through the hallway and was surprised to find that my nostrils were assailed by the smell of fresh-baked gingerbread and the sweet smell of cooked fruit. How odd, I thought. I would have expected such smells to have been apparent in a kitchen, not in a hallway. As I was mulling over the strange situation, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a movement on the staircase that led up to the first floor. A smell of freesias became apparent, and there on the staircase stood the spirit form of a lady. She was in her mid-50s, had white hair, and was dressed in a deep red Victorian-style dress. She said nothing, but drifted slowly up the stairs and disappeared onto the landing above. "This is one of the Ellis sisters," Sam advised me. "She loves her home and her garden and loves to come back and visit. Although the furnishings have changed, she's very happy that her home still remains and she's able to come back and pay visits." I reported to Dr. Mance what Sam had told me about the lady. As I followed her spirit form up the staircase, I was drawn to a room which was full of paraphernalia of children. Small chairs, a cradle, and one or two low armchairs. As I entered the room, I could feel a definite temperature drop. "Annie's here," I said. She was a nursemaid, or a nanny. She was very proficient and had very strong links with this building. She's talking sadly of the loss of two of her small charges. I feel that these two children were lost to spirit through consumption. They're buried in the churchyard. I moved from the nursery into one of the larger bedrooms. Here I encountered a man in spirit. He was quite old and bent over. Although there was no communication from him, I gained the distinct impression that had been some type of servant and that he had worked long and hard for his master. As we moved from bedroom to bedroom, although I was very aware of the residual energy contained in these rooms from many years of occupation by various families, no further spirit people showed themselves to me. I descended the stairs once more and entered the drawing room. There in the corner, I could make out the spirit form of yet another lady building up. I knew that she'd been a good and sensitive person in her earthly life. "I'm Eliza," she told me in direct communication. "I lived here with my sisters." She talked of her sister, Isabella, who had a leg impediment. She was very sad that she had not been able to enjoy walking around the beautiful gardens of Belgrave Hall, though she'd laughingly added, "She has no problem now." It was time for the whole team to congregate in the hallway. It was now 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were all becoming more than a little weary. Suddenly, we all became aware that the temperature had plummeted. I knew that we had been joined by another past inhabitant of Belgrave. I also knew that this spirit entity was not at all pleased at our intrusion. "Edmund," boomed a voice in my ear. "Edmund Craddock." I had feelings of agitation and negativity. The other members of the team confirmed that they too were picking up similar feelings. We all agreed that this man definitely did not want us in his former home. He was a forceful personality who was blustering and huffing. But because there were 4 experienced mediums present, he was unable to cause problems. Now, the ISPR investigation of Belgrave Hall drew to an end. Dr. Mons had analysed the videotape footage and had questioned each of the team about it. We all agreed that, though Belgrave Hall has many ghostly visitations and an enormous amount of residual energy, what had been caught on tape was nothing more than a combination of bad weather and a camera fault. And so the ISPR team's visit to the UK came to an end. The following day, I waved them off from Heathrow Airport and wondered when we would meet again.